Well, let's jump into it. I mean, the championship game next Monday
Yeah.
night, Michigan and Washington, clash of styles, very much so. We've already touched on it a little bit. I tend to think Michigan will run the ball quite well against Washington. Like you said, like I think Washington's receivers can probably get open against anybody, including Michigan.
Mhm.
Michael Penix is a really good quarterback. He's going to make plays in that game. And there's I hesitate to say this because it almost feels just tempting the fates too much. But there's a slight air of inevitability to Washington's offense. Like even in
Yeah.
the Texas game, even some of the drives in the first half not going the way, like ending in punts or whatever, like it just feels like Washington is going to score at least 35 points. Like it's
Yes.
just going to
Yes.
happen.
Yeah.
And I know
Yeah.
Michigan's defense is better than Texas's. Maybe they won't score 35 points, but it almost feels like they will. And the question just comes down to, can Michigan stay ahead of the chains and just continue to run the ball at will? Because it sort of feels like that's like they should be able to do that against Washington's defense. Are they going to get behind the chains too often and have to punt four times? Because if they punt four times, they might lose.
Yeah. I like Michigan in this game. I like Michigan
Yeah.
to cover the 4.5. I think they win. I think they kind of cruise. I loved what Washington did in the game against Texas. Don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's very, very hard to replicate. I don't know if you can do that. They were fantastic, and I just think that's hard. It's hard to be fantastic 2 times in a week. It just really is. I think Michigan. I think that run game travels. I think that they will. I think that they will come out and kind of run over Washington a little bit. I
Mm-hmm.
like Michigan. I like them to cover. Probably the best feel that I've had of anything this bowl season. Yeah, I like the Wolverines.
I think I agree with you. I like Washington so much, and I enjoy
Right.
watching them so much. I will be rooting for them unabashedly. Part of that is because I'm a Notre Dame fan and I hate Michigan,
Yep.
contractually obligated. But man, I just think Michigan is the better football team, and sometimes it's just that simple.
Yeah.
Okay, so we both kind of think Michigan wins this game. What what will it look like if Washington is able to pull off the upset? How do they do this?
I mean, kind of the same way they beat Texas with like Penix. Penix just goes off, and it's not even that hard to comprehend, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, after what he just did, it's not that hard. I do think that if we do see the same version of Penix next Monday, what like I don't think Washington will lose to Michigan. I don't know if they'd lose to
No.
anyone in college. I really don't. Now I think that's very, very hard to do again. Yeah, I think that's just very difficult to do. And I do think that Michigan will get more pressure
Yeah.
and actually make the sacks in the backfield. And once Washington does lose rhythm, Penix does have a tendency to get a little bit rattled. Like once
Mm-hmm.
he makes one bad throw, he'll make two or three. They kind of come in bunches, and that's why you saw Washington struggle for parts in this season when he was hurt, but they were also just out of rhythm. Like it just wasn't clean, it wasn't crisp for them. So there, yeah, there's a path for Washington to win. We think it's maybe a little slight, but there's a path for Washington to win, doing just more of the same. Just
Mm-hmm.
throwing it out, a bunch of NFL receivers catching the ball from a lefty that's out there just throwing dimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could happen. It would be so unprecedented. I mean, we talked to some about it with like the blue chip ratio and all that, and not to get too nerdy into this. Washington does not have much depth of talent on their roster. Michigan doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have a ton either, but like, is there a chance? We've seen, okay, last year we had TCU came and won a playoff game, right? Washington and Michigan this year both won playoff games over teams that had more talent than them.
Mm-hmm.
There's no big bad Georgia to play. Like, this is for the championship. One of these two teams will win and be a first time winner of the CFP, and we'll have a new CFP champ as a head coach as well.
Mm-hmm.
Is the portal, is NIL, is that having some effect on how we used to view talent, like blue chip ratio, accumulation of talent, is there a chance that, or is this just an anomaly? Like, is it an anomaly that, if you go get an NFL quarterback and some happen to get lucky and get 3 NFL wide receivers, that you can make a run in the playoff?
Well, it's a little bit of both, but I mean, is Michael Penix at Washington if not for the portal? Probably not.
Right.
No, he might be. Quarterbacks have always transferred. They will
Sure.
always transfer, but it's a lot easier in this day and age, quite frankly. Maybe he doesn't get quite as much interest around the country if he's transferring back in the old days before the portal. Whatever. Yeah, I do think that for those kind of second and third tier programs when it comes to recruiting, I do think the portal is a really handy way to sort of plug a few holes. Maybe most teams don't have a Michael Penix that they can point to as their best player or one of their 2 best players, and they got him in the portal. Most of your best players aren't going to be in the portal, but maybe starters number 17 through 22 are from the portal. Like, that makes a big difference. Like, just raising the level of some of those guys that normally other teams would be picking on that position, and now all of a sudden you have a little bit better of a player there. That makes a big difference. And in Michigan, they've done a really good job with it. Seems like they bring in one really good offensive lineman every year. They brought in the linebacker from Nebraska, Hausman. I forget his name exactly, but
right.
They've brought in a few players like that. And they don't rely on the portal a lot, but they bring in a few key guys, and that's a big deal. And with Washington, it's maybe a little bit more of an anomaly that you have a first or second round quarterback and 3 first or second round receivers at the same time.
Is there any chance, not to be this guy, because no one likes this guy, but I'm going to go ahead and be this guy. Is there any chance that this is just Georgia TCU all over again? And Michigan comes out, and we mentioned Washington they have a tendency of being a little streaky. We'll just be honest. They can be a little streaky. They had a great night, and it's really hard to follow up 2 fantastic, it's just really hard to put 2 fantastic performances together. And we talked about that with TCU last year. TCU was very, very similar in their talent composite rankings to where Washington is this year. There's within a couple of spots of each other. Any chance that happens?
I will say that there's no chance that Michigan wins 65-7.
Okay.
But there is a chance that Michigan could win this game 49-21 or something like that, or 17. Like, that is absolutely on the table. That defense is legit. Maybe if they get pressure on Penix up the middle, like, maybe that's different. I don't know. And there's a very real possibility that Washington is just completely unable to stop the run. Michigan runs at will. Also, I know Dylan Johnson didn't have the best game at running back for Washington. Didn't have a lot of, he was under 3 yards a carry.
Right.
He has been key for them lately, in several of their last games. He was good against Oregon in the Pac-12 title game. There is a chance that if he is unable to go, and I don't know that for a fact, I'm speculating recklessly. There's a chance that if Washington is too one-dimensional, it's just that they're just not able to score nearly as much as we've gotten used to happening. So if there's a blowout in this game, it's probably Michigan. But honestly, there's also a non-zero chance that Michael Penix just goes off and Michigan is unable to keep up. There's also that chance too, much smaller, I would say.
Yeah.
Let me throw this back at you. So right now I'm looking at one of the biggest sport books out there, and it has Michigan favored by 4.5.
Yeah.
And the money line is Michigan minus 196, Washington plus 162, and the over-under is at 55.5. Do you feel like those are all pretty solid numbers, or where do you feel like there might be leans?
I take Michigan over. Michigan and the over, I guess.
Okay.
I think Michigan's offensive line is a nightmare, especially in the center of that the middle of that offensive line. I think Michigan will run the ball at will. I do. They are at least as good. I would say considerably better rushing team than Texas is. And I don't think that Washington is suddenly going to learn how to shut down the run. So yeah, I think that they're going to run the ball at will. And as long as McCarthy, now this all has a bit of a caveat. The whole thing has a bit of a caveat. If McCarthy goes back and Harbaugh reverts back to the Michigan that we saw in the last 2 years of the playoff, all bets are off. Dear Lord. Yeah, all bets are off at that point. Michigan should, if they clean up a few of their mistakes on special teams, I don't think Washington's defense has many answers for Michigan. I don't.
So,
I think they win and cover and go over.
So Vegas is predicting roughly 30-26. You think maybe 35-28 might be more accurate?
Yeah, I would say maybe. I think Michigan gets to 40. I think Michigan can get to 40 on that defense. Yeah, I just don't see them having many answers. Johnson going down as Washington's running back. Again, you speculated out there. Highly unlikely that he's going to play, at least with how it looked. We're just kind of throwing things out there, but it does not. I would not be expecting him to play. I think I would jump on Michigan at 4.5. I think it's probably going to end up going Michigan's way. I think that line will swing towards Michigan a little bit. I think you've seen a lot of respect from Vegas overall towards Michigan just because of the consistency that they've played with all year. I think that's why they remained a favorite against Alabama last week, even though most of the money was on Bama. So Vegas took all of that and stayed with Michigan as the favorite because they took the whole season into account, I think, and they counted on Michigan being more steady.
And the sharps were on Michigan too, by the way.
Yes, absolutely. And by the way, should have been. That was the correct side. When you saw that line not move after that flood of money towards Alabama, I told some friends of mine, like, when you see that line is not moving, like, that's suspicious that line's not moving at all.
Yep.
And it went up to 2.5 right before kickoff, almost a field goal. Huge jump there. And it was like, okay, that's the side to be on. That all that said, it was an overtime game, coin flip game. But I do think Michigan is viewed correctly by Vegas here, and I think they win. In cover. I think that line will inflate maybe a little as kickoff gets near.
I'll zag on you just slightly. I don't think it's in the 40s. I think both of these teams play slow enough. And it feels weird to say that about Washington, but they even pointed out on the broadcast, they tend to get lined up quickly, and then they wait a little while to snap it. Yeah. I would suspect that this game might be a little lower scoring compared to what we're used to maybe with Washington. Maybe in the 30s. And I don't know. I would definitely not bet on this game. Like, I absolutely would not do it.
Right.
Maybe the Michigan money line, but even that I wouldn't feel great the way it's priced at minus 196. I could almost see any outcome in this game. I think you should just watch this game and enjoy it because it's a clash of styles, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
First championship without an SEC team in it since 2014.
Yeah. We got a battle of the Big Ten teams here.
Right. Yeah. Crazy to think that. Yeah, I mean, just next year, these guys, these two teams play in the regular season next year as well, Michigan and Washington.